We're at GDLX 2024. I'm here with Alyx from Silverscript Games, and we're going to talk about The Quiet Things.
So The Quiet Things is a narrative game, and it's also my autobiography. So it's based on diary entries I kept when I was a child and teenager. But it also deals with quite heavy subjects around childhood abuse and like the themes around like suicide and self-harm, because that's the impact that abuse can have on a person and how it affects them growing up and going through those experiences. That's the long and short of it.
Yeah, that's quite a heavy subject to take on in traditionally a sort of a light-hearted entertainment medium. So how have you sort of gone about fitting those things together?
Well, that's the thing. Like, a lot of people think, oh, games need to be fun or really engaging and this kind of a thing, which is great for those that are, but it's also a medium in its own right and an artistic platform in the same way that film and TV are and books, and they all deal with these kind of things, but games are like not straying into that area too much yet. But I think they're the perfect platform for it because you have that extra level of you can virtually walk in someone else's shoes and actually experience things and make decisions about it and feel like you're part of it rather than just passively watching something. And so I think you can get a lot more like empathy and understanding through being able to do that in a game.
Yeah, that is true, I think. And when you think back as well to when some of the first sort of walking simulator things like Dear Esther came out, there was so much emotional connection there because you feel like you're walking in the shoes of that character and, you know, well, I won't ruin it for anyone who hasn't played it. So games as art is something that seems to be growing as a concern these days. I mean, more and more people are turning away from playing massive AAA pure action things and looking for independent games that tell interesting stories and so on. How have you found the reaction so far to be as people have been playing?
Yeah, I mean, there's a space for both. And I think people may play all those kind of games in their week. You know, like you might be in the mood for one thing one day and a different thing the other day. It's not that games have to be one thing or the other. I personally found the reaction to the game to be very positive. And I think, especially with the topics that we cover in the game, people like myself, perhaps if they've gone through anything similar, sometimes you think that you're the only person that's experienced those things. And I wanted to make a game that I wish I'd had when I was that age, because I might have understood or at least known that I wasn't alone in that experience. And so, and games are the things that I played much more. Like I do watch films and I read books, but games is the one medium that I interact with the most. And I think you'll find that with a lot of people growing up now, and that's the way that they understand the world as well. So we should definitely be exploring those kind of things more because it creates that community and empathy as humans, and all we want to do is connect with each other and understand each other, really. And so the fact that I'm able to tell my story but also have conversations with people about things that they might not even actually talk to anyone else about, that's great to me because that's a small change and shift in perspective in society and what people are able to do. And if we can have that power on a bigger scale, that would be just amazing.
And in terms of creating that world, how have you gone about crafting the visual style of things and what influenced that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much like the Life is Strange game, so you can probably see that influence in the art style, but we didn't want to make it completely realistic. I wanted to have a slightly artistic style to it, just for nuance, and we're recreating ultimately real environments that I've lived through, but I don't want it to feel exactly the same, and it still should feel like a game. And, you know, our artists do an incredible job, and I quite like that it's not a documentary, it's still a game. So it's like, it's an entertainment medium tackling important things, but it has its own style as well, which I hope that comes across a little.
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of, obviously all games are incredibly technical things to make.
Yeah.
You can have all the artistic vision you want, but you've got to get it to function on a computer. Have you had any specific challenges making this function the way that you wanted so far?
I think the lighting system's the hardest. Like, Unreal has an amazing lighting system, but because it's so powerful, it's easy. Just because you're on the wrong version, you've got to update the engine. Suddenly, like, all the shadows are broken and you've got to reiterate everything. I think as well, it's the first time I've made a game from this perspective and like doing the programming and working in blueprints. Like, they're incredibly powerful, but I'm still learning every day. And of course, naturally, all games technology changes constantly. So, you know, you can learn everything and then the next day there's a new update and there's new things to learn and particle systems and all of that. But it's such a time to live in that we can do that. And I'm not trained as a programmer, but I can get on board with that and create what I envision.
Yeah, definitely. That barrier to entry has kind of been removed to a certain degree as long as you're willing to get stuck in.
Yeah.
Whereas it used to be you had to be able to code C++ or you're stuck. But for anyone who comes from an arts background, that's quite hard to sort of move over to. Whereas if you can do it in lines and squares, it makes a lot more sense if you're a very visual person.
Sure.
So have you decided to update the engine as you've gone on the project to take advantage of new features then?
Well, I really want to, but I'm pretty sure it will break everything as soon as I do. So I'm just trying to get to like the point where we're like, okay, the demo's fine. We're going to leave the demo as it is, and then everything will break and we'll have to refix it all for the full game. Yeah.
So in terms of release, what's the roadmap from now? Are you working up to a demo? Do you have one already? How's it going?
Yeah, so we have a demo. We have the game here today as well that's playable, and it's also on Steam and itch.io for people. And that's just like a small kind of snapshot of what the game is like. The actual full game is a lot bigger and tells the whole story. But we just wanted to give a sense of like the childhood aspect and then the teenage thing, just to show those two timelines. But the full game we're hoping to release next year, but indie development is what it is, and so you don't know how things are going to go. But I mean, we've done a lot of cool stuff and we've got quite far with the voice recording, so I think a lot of the kind of the key assets are quite close to being done, but it's putting it together and then making sure the game design works, doing all the play testing, and we have to take a lot of care because of the content that we have in the game to play test and consult with like academics and psychologists and things like that to make sure we're not like causing harm to players. So that's, I don't have a specific time on that because I don't know, there's not much like resources about that. So we're kind of making it up and learning it as we go with that one.
Yeah, I guess if you're not sort of treading a well-trodden path, you do have to kind of find your own way through it.
There's a little bit more experimentation with it for sure.
Cool. Well, best of luck with it. I hope it all goes well.